let's charge the damn mound. And due to a heavy request from AJ and all of his fans, we unfortunately have to start the show again with Shohei Ohtani talk.
Oh.
This is good, though. This is, in all seriousness, AJ, really good player perspective. I mean, sometimes I'm like, this is why we do a show like this, because you guys have signed contracts and you know of other people that have had random requests. So I like this. It's cool. Bob Nightingale reported that if Mark Walter, who's the controlling owner of the Dodgers, or Andrew Friedman, who controls the front office, the president of baseball operations, leaves, either of them, Shohei Ohtani can opt out of his contract. So, like, if something happens with Andrew Friedman in the next year or Mark Walter, whatever, right? Ohtani can suddenly say, I'm good. I'm done. I'm back on the free agent market, and we can play this whole song and dance again. Also, and I'll add a little bit to it, I guess, more context here from Bob, is that it's called a Keyman clause used by Joe Madden when he left the Rays in 2014, when Andrew Friedman had left the Rays in 2014. And I'll just add also, it sounds like Ohtani gets a suite for home games, so that's cool. Ken wrote about that. He said, player will donate to the club charity amount not to exceed 1%, also gives him a suite at Dodger Stadium for all regular and postseason games, and provides interpreter. Your thoughts on these little extra goodies, and what have you seen around you before from other players that tops that?
I mean, he's got power now. I mean, first of all, where the hell is Andrew Friedman going to go? I would think the Dodgers are about the best job you could have in baseball. I mean, what's he going to quit for? Or
What if he gets in trouble?
And if he gets in trouble, then Shohei will probably be like, I don't want to follow him anyway. So I don't know. I mean, listen, the suite at home, a million guys get that. Suites, interpreter. I mean, I'm assuming that was always part of the deal. Suite on the hotel would be nice. Maybe he could get two suites in the hotel. I don't know. But listen, the fact that he has enough power, again, to hide all this and then, basically say, hey, if Andrew, it's the only player I've ever heard of that if someone in the front office leaves, he can opt out. So kind of cool to see players having power for once. But if he opts out, does he lose the deferred money? How does, there's some weird, I mean, if you say he's there 2 years and then he opts out, he makes 4 and then he gets 2 years of 68. I'd like to know how that kind of structured stuff works.
I'm sure he's still getting his money. My thing is, so you're telling me that this is in a contract that was negotiated by the owner and the GM, and their jobs are secure as long as he's in LA. Seems like a win-win-win for all three of you. I don't see why this is like a Shohei thing. Like, Shohei's like, oh man, I hope the GM doesn't leave. No, the GM's like, hey, as long as Shohei's here, I want to tie my coattails to this guy.
It sounds like Succession, doesn't it? It doesn't work completely like this in baseball, of course, but imagine if it's like you're the owner of the Dodgers and you sit in front of the board and they're like, we want you out. The board wants you out. And you're like, oh, really? You want me out? Well, Shohei Ohtani's gone. You know, the dude that makes us $100 million a year and helped us win a World Series in 2025? He'll be gone. Sure you want me out? And they'll be like, no, we want you in.
Yeah.
It is great leverage. It's a good call. I didn't even think of it that way. But for Andrew as well. I mean, think about this. Andrew Friedman, whenever his contract expires, and I think he's making like $10 million a year. Obviously, He seems like a good dude, but
$10 million a year?
That's what Theo was making. I'm pretty sure Andrew's
in
that range.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I can look it up. I feel like it's been kind of reported out there. It's massive. You know, Theo Epstein was making 10 a year, right? With the Cubs. Oh, yeah.
And that means he's making 50 with the commissioner's office because they just hand out money over there.
He's making some cheese over there.
Okay, so let's say you're Andrew, right? Dodgers win a World Series next year, and he happens to have the contract expiring around that time. It's a tough negotiation to sit down for. Well, we just won a World Series, and if you don't meet my $18 million a year demand, Shohei Ohtani and his $2 million a year on that awesome deferral deal that I put together will go Shredder.
Is that a new dance? Was that like your new dance you're going to use tonight when people are out there behind you bumping? This is awesome. Again, this is, yeah. Oh, you're pulling the rope. I like it.
Oh, I'm pulling Shohei. I'm pulling Shohei with me, and we're going to, maybe travel somewhere else. We're traveling down to the Bay Area because we want to prove that San Francisco's cool.
Wow. I mean, listen. Again, I think this is awesome. I think it's great. I think it's fun that players actually, for once, player has enough power to make these kind of. Because listen, I mean, I played with some pretty big guys in my career, and nobody had this kind of power to say, "I want this, I want that," and every owner was like, "Whatever you want, Mister Shohei. Yes, sir, Mister Ohtani. Whatever you want, we will do whatever you want. Just come here." So listen, the Dodgers bowed down, and you're talking about them not being good or whatever. I mean, they have Betts signed for a long time. They have Freddie Freeman signed for a long time. Now they have Shohei signed. This team ain't going anywhere. And the biggest thing is they got money, 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 money.
How about the fact that most GMs sit there and they go, on like the rebuilding teams are like, well, this is a 5-year process. Friedman just put himself in a 10-year guaranteed process because there ain't no way, if Friedman is the one that convinced him to come over, that they're going to let him go. Not saying they were going to let him go anyway. It just is a nice security blanket for him. But also, like, other teams, they know other teams negotiated these things. Like the Giants, Farhan said that they upped their offer 3 times. So they were right in the ballpark. So Friedman was sitting there going, they had conversations about what should be in this. And if this was a Ned Belelzo, or whatever his name is, like
Nez Balello.
I had him mixed up. I had him bass backwards. He had this in there. I don't think it's nefarious what they were doing. I don't think they were trying to do anything bad, but to me, it sounds like everybody's locked in. It's like the Braves locked in, except for like $1 billion more.
That's cool. I give him credit. He has leverage, and
Unique.
At the same time, I mean, not many players would take $2 million a year and defer the rest. I'm telling you.
Yeah, if I was
How many
making
guys would have
50,
done
if
that?
I was making 50 off the field, I'd be like, pay me minimum, and I'll defer all of it.
Okay. You think many guys would do that? I guess you're right because of the endorsement side. But you can't do that
He's
with
the only one.
most players. That's the problem. Yeah.
But he's the only one. There's not a lot of players that can do this. Even like Scherzer and some in bets that they're deferring money, but they're still getting most of it up out front. Maybe Soto could do this. I don't know because he's going to make enough. But even he doesn't make enough in endorsements to say if he signs a 10-year, $440 million, he's like, I'm going to defer 38 million of it, or whatever. I'm just throwing random numbers out there clearly because I don't know that he would want to do that. I mean, he'd at least go 30 up front, 10 down the road, something like that. But because of Ohtani's money off the field, he's the only guy, again, that one I've seen have this power, and 2 that could do this.
Scherzer did half.
But Scherzer also had already made, however much.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean,
he's
a lot
also
of guys,
half of 40 is still 20. Right? So he's still getting 20 a year. Oh, I can barely live off that Latrell Sprewell. Can't feed my kids, right? But think about if he would have said, all right, I'll give the Mets, I'll take 2 and I'll defer 38 million. Right? No, he didn't do that. He did half and half, which is still 20 and 20 or whatever the exact, something around there, right? So yeah, he's getting 20 down the road, but he's getting 70 and he took 2 and he's giving up 68 for 10 years from now. It's just never happened.
Scherzer's half was in, I don't know what he did with the Mets, but I know his half was in the Nats contract, the original Nats contract. It was like 30 a year. He was getting 15 when he played, 15 now when he's not playing for the Nats.
Hey, it's hard to live off 15 million, Kratz, okay?
I remember when Latrell Sprewell did that whole thing and they said what he'd have to feed his kids. And it was like, his kids could only eat caviar 2 times a day for an entire year if he would make, the money he was making. So that was a good lesson in careful what you say.
Yeah. Perspective. And by the way, Ohtani has his press conference. It's after our show. We appreciate that. So we get through our show. We're kind of the pregame show for it. And then we'll break it down tomorrow. So don't worry. He will be included in tomorrow's show as well. We'll get one question here from a fan in the chat before we move on. And by the way, Rowdy Tellez is going to join us soon on FT. Jonas said, why is everyone blaming the Dodgers front office when they didn't trade or pick up any stars last year and the Dodgers planned for this years ago?
Facts. Nobody's blaming them. At least here, I don't think there's any hate for anything in this situation. The only shade I think we've thrown is on other teams that really wanted him. The opportunity was out there. Free market system is not just for the players. The teams have an opportunity. Before this year, nobody had an opportunity besides some astronomical trade, which the Angels clearly were not going to do, to get Shohei Ohtani. You had your chance. That's the only shade that I'm giving out to the 29 other teams.
True. And he offered this he said, every team that talked to him, he offered him the same deal. And apparently the Giants and the Dodgers were the only two that we know that matched it. And listen, I mean, he had his choice. He chose Southern Cal where he already lives. He's already been there for a bunch of years, and he picked the Dodgers over the Giants. It was his decision. But if there's, if I'm any other team and I'm like, oh, I can get Shohei Ohtani for 2 years, yeah, I have to defer money. Why would you not do that? Because you worry about the $68 million later on down the road. You're going to make more than enough to cover it on the front end. So, I mean, heck, I would have, if I was any team, I know he wouldn't have gone to like Oakland, but I'm thinking like, gosh, if I'm any team, I'm like, I'm trying this out.
The Dodgers are also getting rewarded for being a winning organization. I mean,
yeah,
we've talked about this, but it still rings true. It's hard to look at many other ball clubs and say, I know I'm going to have a shot, right? You can give them shit for not winning a World Series besides in 2020. Totally fair. And not winning since 1988 besides that. That's fair. I think we've had a number of Dodgers players on since they lost that have said they need to do some reevaluating about their postseason strategy and just their roster construction. Fair. But they are getting into the playoffs every single year. Not easy to do in this sport, even for some of the bigger teams that people like to give shit to, like the Yankees. They didn't make the playoffs last year. The Red Sox are an up and down roller coaster. The Mets had the highest payroll in baseball. Not a consistent playoff team. The Dodgers are a consistent playoff team. That matters. Also, it's a first-class operation. We've talked about this too, right? Oh, there's new technology out there for players. Let's buy it for the whole team, right? Like, they do not hesitate on the little things. They think about long-term implications for their ball club. Is that accurate? I mean, I
Absolutely.
feel like some teams are so cheap about the dumbest things, right? It's like you'll give it a big contract, but then the owner's like, oh, I'm not going to pay for that. And it's like, well, this might help us pick up a few wins. No, not interested. It's just stupid. The Dodgers don't operate like that. And they're not the only ones. But for him, it was a perfect storm. He liked being out there already. And he just looks across an hour away and says, yeah, that's being run way better than this. So I'm leaving.
Scott.
And many people think he was trying to go to the Dodgers the first time around, but there was no DH in the National League at the time. So it was going to prevent him from being the full-on, one-of-a-kind unicorn that he is.
Scott, by the way, you probably know the answer. Maybe Kratz knows the answer to this. How much does a team make when they sell jerseys of a player?
It's percentage based because the players get. I thought it was like 10% of all jersey sales go to the player. I mean, not to player, the Players Association. So
because Shohei just set the all-time record, right? Rowdy was second behind Shohei for the most 48 hours when they changed teams. Lionel Messi was third, and I think Ronaldo was fourth. But Shohei just blew away Lionel Messi and Rowdy Tellez in all-time jersey sales in 48 hours. I mean, that matters. It's money in the Dodgers' pocket.
Yeah, but that's, to me, I think that is, well, that's amazing. I never heard that record. I think the big thing is really going to be like automatic money right away, not like residual advertising, all that stuff. Is that sleeve? I'm telling you, if the Yankees sold theirs for $25 million a year, Yankees are a big time product. Shohei may be a bigger time product.
You're right. And that's just one, though. I want to remind you, that's just one of many things that you can sell.